Hello, this is Heather with Creativity by Heather BE. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today I'm going to be showing you a fun card using old and new products from Mama Elephant. The May release from Mama Elephant featured this wonderful box card die set. It is called the Scenescape Builder, and that's what I'm going to use as the kind of, not really focal point, but the main part of the card that I'm going to create today. So that some of the older sets that I'm going to pull into this card are the Tiny Heroes Agenda. I just love all of the little Mama Elephant agenda sets. And this one off screen, I stamped and colored using Copic markers several of the little critters that come in the stamp set. So throughout this card, I knew I wanted to keep it very traditional superhero colors. So the blue, reds, and yellows. So those are the colors that I used for the Copics when I colored the little critters. Another new set that I'm going to be incorporating into this card is the Urban City stamp set. This is a great stamp set. It does come with that main focal point, and then you also have a couple sentiments underneath. So I'm going to be heat embossing that and using that as kind of my background for the city that my superheroes are saving. This is the Slim Scenescape Builder. This is all of the pieces stamped out. So that blue piece there is what I'm going to heat emboss my Urban City stamp set on. And I'll show you that here in a moment. And with all of the pieces, the die does cut the score lines for you. So what I found was the easiest to do was to go ahead and cut everything, score it, and I would just bend it over with my fingers and then take my bone folder and go back over and make sure that that score line was really defined and pushed down. So I went through and scored all of the pieces. And by the way, the cardstock that I chose to use for this card is all Lawn Fawn cardstock. For the blue, I'm using Blue Jay, the yellow is Sunflower, and then the red is Chili Pepper. So for the assembly of the box, I added the slanted piece there is one of the sides, and you have two options for the sides. You have slanted or you have a straight side. So I chose to use a slanted for this. Then you can cut as many inside pieces as you want. I am only using two. I will tell you one of the things that, when I make another one of these, and if you decide to get this and make it, make sure that that very back one, that first one that I put in with the double-sided tape, is moved up a little bit. I put it back too far, which you'll see here in a moment once I get the box completely assembled. And so make sure that that's moved up a little bit so you have some space in there. So I'm going to go ahead and add in the slanted side on the other side of my box, but I'm not going to assemble everything together. I'm going to go ahead and just leave that double-sided tape on that end with the release paper on it, and I'm going to start to work on my city scene first. Once I get my scene done and get that adhered, then I'll go ahead and assemble the rest of the box. So I have my piece of Blue Jay cardstock here, and the stamp set for the Urban City stamp set, it is not slimline. It's just regular A2. So I kind of went back and forth on if I wanted to just kind of center it, which is what I'm going to end up doing, or if I wanted to do it multiple times. So the scene kind of continued on. And I decided that I just wanted to center it. I decided that would look better. Excuse me. I did prep my paper, my cardstock with my anti-static powder tool, and I'm using the British Monroe embossing ink. And also, if you've been to my channel, seen my videos, you know I love the British Monroe embossing powder. So I am using the Sterling embossing powder to emboss this city scene. I thought about doing white, but I didn't want it to be so stark. And because I used the Blue Jay cardstock, it kind of made it more of a night scene. So I'm going to use my Debbie tool, and this is the tool that I didn't know I needed until I got it in my hand. If you struggle with your MISTI of getting that even pressure, if you have problems with your hands, your wrist, this tool is worth it. As always, I'll have all of the products linked down below, but that is definitely worth checking out. So I'm going to just sprinkle my sterling embossing powder over. I like to use a coffee filter. I don't drink coffee, so I have plenty of these. I just buy them and use them. It's the easiest thing I found. I know some people use a folded up sheet of paper. For me, the coffee filter is just the easiest. They're inexpensive. I can use them over and over and over. And as you can see, they fold up and dump everything back in my jar nicely. So once I get that done, I'm going to take my Wagner heat tool, which off camera I've had warming up and getting hot. And I'm going to go ahead and start to melt that embossing powder. I am using my Tim Holtz glass mat while I'm working on this project, so I'm able to just set my panel down and you see the magic of embossing. And I will tell you, when I started out in card making many years ago, this is what sucked me in. I thought embossing was just so magical, and I still do. I just love to see it melt and come to life. So now that I had my panel totally heat embossed, and I really like the silver on it. I'm glad I went with that instead of the white. I think it would have been just too stark. I decided that my cardstock looked a little bit flat. So I'm going to take Distress Oxide. I'm going to use first the Sapphire, and it didn't really darken it up enough. So I'm going to go back in with Black Soot, and that's really going to give me the look that I want. So it's going to kind of darken up those edges. Everything's not going to look so flat anymore. And I am even going to just kind of, with the ink that's left, run it over the main part where I've embossed as well. And then I'll just take a cloth and kind of wipe that down, as you can see there. I also decided I wanted to add some stars and just kind of give this background a little bit more something. And so I'm going to pull out my Gansai Tambi Starry paint set, Watercolors. I love this set. It was relatively inexpensive and I use it all the time. So if you're looking for something, and I know a lot of people just take paint, just like regular paint, things like that, and do stars. I love this one because you have like rose gold colors, you have gold, you still have like an ivory for your white. And I've had this for years and it hardly even looks like I've used it. It is definitely worth the investment. Love this thing. It dries great. It doesn't crack. Just a really good like starter watercolor set. I've also used it to watercolor on like darker cardstocks and it's just gorgeous. So once I had my stars on there, I'm going to take my cloth, and this is a Pink and Main cloth. As you can see, the very loved one underneath. And I'm just wiping that paint off the top of the embossing powder. And it was nice because I'd embossed that, it just sat on top of it. So as long as I could get it off before it dried, I didn't have kind of the stars or speckles on my buildings. So now that I have my background where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and adhere it to the back of our box. I want to make sure I keep that red chili pepper as kind of my border to pull that red in, especially through the characters, because there's a lot of blue and darker colors in this card. So once I have my background set, now I'm going to go ahead and fold over my front piece and then my two inside flaps, remove that backing paper, and now I'm going to close up the other slanted side. And you'll notice that when I go to close it, one of them's a little bit longer, that one on the inside, and I just took a pair of scissors and trimmed it off. I don't know what I did to make it longer, but I just made it work. So once I get those in place, I'm going to close it down all at the same time. And now I have this awesome little box. And this is where you'll see, I kind of realized I should have moved that back one. You can see it's almost touching the back panel. So when you're putting this together, make sure you give that a little bit more room and pull that forward a little bit. So now that I have the assembly of the box done, the background, now comes the fun part, taking all these little critters and these little heroes and putting them in place to set the scene. So when I I stamped, colored, and die cut all of these, I also just die cut in white cardstock, the same critters that I'm using, but just in white. Because what I'm doing, and you can kind of see it reflecting there, is I'm going to take acetate and cut it into strips and then just use tape runner and connect one of my little heroes to the front, and then I'm going to find the die cut that matches it and connect that to the back. So I decided to do this for a couple reasons. First of all, it's going to give it a little bit more stability because some of these are going to be up about an inch or so off the card to kind of make them look like they're flying. The other reason is because Copics, just the nature of Copic markers, they bleed through the paper. So it just kind of made it look a little more clean to me. Not that anybody's really going to be looking at the back of the card. So this is where I'm kind of going on the hunt for the correct one, because why would I die cut them and then make sure I matched them up when I did that? That would make way too much sense. So I'm not going to, I did edit out a lot of me hunting for the correct backing, but I'm just going through and adding all of my little critters. Now there's 3 of them, of the little tiny heroes, that I'm not going to put onto the acetate. They're going to go directly onto the card. And when I cut my acetate strips, I didn't cut them all the same length. They're all between 2 and 3 inches long, 3 and 4 inches long. And I'll show you here in a moment. When I decide where I'm going to put them, I just flip the box over because it's open on the bottom, and then I just trim off the excess. That was the easiest way for me to kind of be able to really place them where I wanted them. And another thing about the little tiny heroes is, this is obviously, if you've had any of the Tiny Agenda sets from Mom Elephant, they're jam-packed. And so this isn't nearly all of the little tiny heroes that was in that set. I went through and pulled out a variety of the way that maybe they were flying. So I didn't want a bunch that were flying like towards the right or towards the left. I wanted to kind of mix it up a little bit to make sure that I could have some good placement when I was putting my little tiny heroes down. So that's why there aren't all of them there, and how I kind of went about choosing the ones that I did. Okay, so once I have everything on there, that chick is actually not down yet. I'm going to put the bear first. Now with this bear, and this is something kind of trial and error, I put the adhesive and put that strip on the front of that little inside strip there. You can kind of see it. I'm actually later on going to take that off, use my powder bag to get rid of that stickiness, and then I'm going to move it to the back. I'm going to keep it in the same place, but I'm going to move it to the back. So you can't see that strip as clear. So there you can see I just flip it over and cut off the bottom, and then that allows me to kind of do whatever height I want, so they can all be different. So they look like they're truly all flying through the air. And this is such a great way to have at any kind of dimension and floating things in boxes like this. And it doesn't just have to be like heroes that are flying. You could do butterflies, you could do even like flowers if you wanted them, just to kind of be a little more whimsical. So and the acetate, I have a package of acetate that I bought at Michael's years ago that I haven't even got a 4th through. But take the acetate, keep the acetate from the stamp packages that you buy. Once I kind of got some of the critters on there, I decided that I wanted one of them to have some type of sentiment. So I did off-screen stamp and emboss, and these are 2 sentiments that are actually from the Tiny Hero stamp set. And this one says "You're super duper," and I just attached that with one of the little dogs holding a heart. I thought that would be a cute one to add there. And then the other one, "You're my hero," is a tiny one I'm going to add to the front. So I am now taking the extra pieces, kind of like the panel pieces that come, the decorative panels with the die set, and I cut those out of the yellow, the sunflower cardstock. And then I also cut the same size panel that I did my Urban City stamp on out of the sunflower, and I'm going to put that on the back so I still have that red edging, and I'm going to use this as a place to write my message. And I did go back and colored up one more little tiny hero and added that to the back of the card, which I don't have any pictures of, just so the back didn't look so plain. And now I'm just working on the front decorative strip. So this is one of the things with a card, you know, when we make a card, there's always something we look at it and think, oh, I wish I would have done that differently. This is it. I don't like the "You're my hero" there in the middle. I think it's too small. I wish I would have put that either like over to the side with one of them, put a couple more of the tiny heroes on it. I don't know. That small sentiment in the front kind of bothered me, but at this point I was like, it's there. Let's be honest, this card is probably going to one of my little nephews. They're not going to care. They're just going to love that there's chickens flying in the card. So, but I would probably use a longer sentiment here instead of that smaller one. So that is the final card. I was kind of in a crafty rut, and this card really helped to get me out of it, doing something different. It was just a small amount of Copic coloring, as the die cutting. It was a mixture of everything, and it really helped me to get my creativity flowing again. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you're not a subscriber, I hope that you'll consider subscribing. I am a teacher, so I know through the school year my videos are a little slower, but we're on summer break, yay! So I will have much more content uploading here in at least the next couple of months. So thank you so much. I hope that y'all have a great day, and we'll see you next time.